look first at the broader picture, at the macro view. As we know, hospitality tech is changing, it's evolving faster than ever, but so is hospitality. Hospitality is undergoing a period of really meaningful and rapid change. We've seen and continue to see an explosion of tech-enabled operations, everything from automation and AI-driven messaging to the PMS world, but also to AI in particular. Everything is moved from being experimental in the AI side to now being really quite operational, powering guest interactions, also pricing, and then also internal workflows with teams. AI is being used now to triage, communicate, make sense of data. And we are really also on the cusp of agentic AI within the hospitality tech, the hotel tech, the short-term rental tech space. So guests' expectations are shifting. They're demanding more immediacy, transparency, and of course, personalization as well, which puts immense pressure on operators and also their tech stacks. This is compounded by the wider global backdrop of economic uncertainty, labor shortages, regulatory shifts, the impact of climate change. There's an awful lot of pressure from the macro view on hospitality at the moment. So crucially, alongside these industry shifts, the way that people search, research, and make decisions is also changing. The buyer journey now starts in a completely different place than it did before. So the key message is this: visibility is not impacted by one big disruption, but by a set of parallel shifts that we're seeing within the industry, within search behavior, and also within consumer behavior. So what that means is it's fundamentally reshaping how hospitality tech brands get discovered, how people are discovering and ultimately buying products. And so what is happening here is that the tech landscape is also, it's very complex, it's competitive, but it's also full of tons of opportunity as well. So if we look at hospitality tech, it's richer than ever. There's constant innovation. We're getting new tools developed all of the time. There are also new platforms coming out. And all this richness creates a huge challenge. It creates an awful lot of noise. Categories are also overlapping. We're seeing features converge, and everyone in the tech space is starting to sound and look a little bit familiar. So to buyers, analysts, and journalists, it's increasingly difficult to understand A, what a product does, B, how it's different from competitors, C, where it sits in the ecosystem, and then finally, what's most important is why it matters. Why does it matter to hoteliers or to property managers, to the end user? So even strong, well-funded companies are struggling to articulate this really clearly right now. In a noisy environment, clarity is actually a strategic advantage. Visibility is no longer just about being seen, it's about being understood quickly, easily, and also fundamentally accurately. Brands are not getting lost because they're weak or they don't have a great product, but it's because the landscape is crowded. The companies that succeed are the ones with an unmistakably clear story. So let's look a little bit about the way people are searching and evaluating solutions and how that's shifting. So research behavior has completely changed for everyone in hospitality. People simply do not research the way that they did 3 to 5 years ago, 6 months ago, a year ago even. Everything that they expect, they're expecting faster answers, cleaner comparisons, short summaries, but really the most important is that everybody is looking for less friction. Zero-click behavior is continuing to be on the rise with no stopping, meaning that more people are getting their answers without ever clicking through to a website. Our first instinct is to ask the question directly, and increasingly we're getting AI tools like Chat, Perplexity, Gemini, Grok to answer for us. So AI tools have become the first draft of understanding. They're used to frame categories, compare vendors, and summarize what really matters to our customers. So this isn't about replacing search. It's about reshaping and accelerating research. It's an evolution rather than a complete disruption in how people want to understand and consume information. Now, I know that Amy now is going to go into more detail about how AI does search.
Yeah, thanks, Jessica. So let's have a quick look at what the LLMs actually do behind the scenes, because this is actually a part that I think a lot of people do misunderstand. And when we say LLMs, we are talking about large language models. So as Jessica mentioned, Chat, Gemini, Perplexity, and the likes of those. So when we do think about search, a lot of us are still imagining the old model. So you type something in, you browse a list of links, you're skimming through pages, compare, evaluate, and eventually you form your view. So AI doesn't operate like this at all. So first of all, it retrieves, it doesn't search, and it retrieves information from many different places. So when someone asks an AI tool a question like, what are the main hotel operating platforms? Which companies offer automated guest messaging? The model goes out and it's actively retrieving information from multiple sources simultaneously. And the first thing that it's looking for is clarity. So it does pull out what's clear, what's structured, and what's repeated. If your messaging as a company is vague or it's conceptual, or if what you do or how you describe yourself differs across your website, your LinkedIn, across media, what you've got on your product pages, AI basically can't form a stable understanding of your brand. So it's really important to think of it like it doesn't interpret, it categorizes, and it identifies the most consistent, literal, high confidence signals that it can find. So if different parts of your narrative are competing with each other or they're not clear, AI will just default to the safest and most simplest interpretation. And sometimes that's not the one that you'll want it to use. So thirdly, AI also produces a summary, not a list. So traditional search, it might give you 10 different options to trawl through. AI is giving that one single answer. And what that means is that if you're not part of that clear, most consistently reinforced pattern behind the answer, then you're not actually going to be sort of showing up at all. And I think what we're seeing is that people do increasingly have, shorter patience, shorter attention spans, and there is already a high trust in AI. So when people are asking those initial questions, they are taking and trusting that first answer in many cases as the fairest and most accurate summary and recommendation. So for companies, what this means is you are no longer competing for that first page on Google or those first couple of links. You're actually competing for one single answer, and which obviously does add complexity to the strategy. AI also relies heavily on what it trusts. So it doesn't treat all sources equally. And this is really important to pay attention to. So as well as having clarity across your website and your own channels, AI is looking for that trusted third-party validation. And this can include, press coverage, interviews, articles, awards and recognition, analyst content, that consistent language across multiple third-party sites. Basically, anything with external validation carries more weight than what you say about yourself on your own website. And this is one of the big reasons that PR is becoming so critical in this new AI-driven environment. Every article, every interview, every case study, it's all a massive signal of credibility to AI. It's something that AI can basically latch onto as like trusted context, essentially. And then finally, AI does reinforce whatever it sees most consistently. So the models, they don't just retrieve once, they do learn from repetition. So if your narrative is clear, it's structured, it's consistently published across different channels, it does become the default version of your brand in AI answers. But if your narrative is evolving too quickly, it's inconsistent, it's rarely reinforced at all, then AI basically doesn't have a stable pattern to work with. So if we look now at AI's visibility model, this is just quite a simple way to think about how AI builds brand understanding. So it goes through 4 different stages. First of all, you've got questions, then retrieval, then selection, and then reinforcement. So the questions are obviously what operators ask, and this shapes what the model then goes and tries to retrieve. And then you've got the retrieval stage. AI goes out and it gathers every single signal it can find across the ecosystem. system. So it will be looking at things like blogs and website, but it will also heavily be looking at those third-party validation signals. And then selection. So what it chooses to reference is based on what it can find that is the most clearest, the most consistent, and the most trusted. So it is really looking for that clarity, and then also, to see that other people have written about you or have featured you and have said, this is a trusted brand. And then you've got reinforcement. So what it continues to see regularly over time, whatever appears reliably, it does become the truth that the model repeats. So again, it's really, really all about that consistency and making sure your message is clear. And then if we just take a step back and look at what all of this adds up to. So Jessica's already covered off a lot of this, but we are in an incredibly competitive sector in the hotel tech and short-term rental tech space. There's stuff going on every single day. It's incredibly competitive. This busier information environment is also becoming busier every day. There are more channels, there's more content, there's more opinions and more noise than ever. And people are exposed to more messaging formats than they've ever had to process before. And then at the same time, operators have less time, and let's be honest, they've got more demands. Teams are stretched, everyone's busy, companies are making decisions, but your company really does have seconds, not even minutes, to get in front of them through these AI answers. And then search behavior is evolving. And search has compressed. As we've spoken about, people want fast clarity. They want the short version. They just want the tell me what I need to know. And then finally, AI has become a common research layer. So it's not that people have stopped searching, but AI is almost becoming like a filter between you and those who are searching. And when we put all of these shifts together, we get a pretty clear picture. So the companies with the clearest and the most consistent stories win. And the brands that succeed will be the ones whose stories are simplest for both humans and machines to understand. It's not about being louder. It's not about being bigger. It's actually, in this stage, being clearer. So let's look now a little bit deeper at the role that PR specifically can play in helping companies build visibility and show up in this new environment. So firstly, it really is all about sharpening the narrative. Your brand narrative is your anchor, and it's important that we start thinking of it that way. So at Abode, when we work with companies, the very first thing we do is sit down with them to really, really hone in on their messaging, their narrative. What do you do in a sentence? And it's really about sharpening all of that and making sure it's crisp, simple, and distinctive. Everything then follows on top of that. All of the PR, everything that's built around it, all tunes into this one brand narrative that we want to consistently be pushing across media. And then it's really important to build authority and visibility through an ecosystem of earned media. And what this means is it's not about one-off press releases. It's not about sort of a one-off launch. It really is this long-term, ongoing ecosystem. Basically, think of it almost like different signals that AI can monitor and pull up. And AI and humans, actually, they rely more on trusted external verification than anything that you can say about your space. So about yourself, sorry. So in a very crowded space, if we just think the most valuable currency is this independent confirmation. And third-party validation, it can look like, as we've spoken about, those press articles, industry commentary, awards, conference speaking, founder or C-suite interviews. This is all high confidence signals. And basically, PR delivers the one thing that algorithms just can't fake and companies can't self-generate. And it's that credibility sourced from outside your own walls. You can shout about yourself from the rooftops on your website, and that's great. And it will be taken into consideration. But it's that third-party validation that really goes the extra mile with AI. And then in the hotel tech and the short-term rental tech industry, people don't just follow products, they do follow leaders. And AI actually picks up on this too. So when you have a really strong CEO or a spokesperson or a leader who can talk about category shifts, emerging challenges, market dynamics, guest behavior, economic pressures, these actually become reference points for both humans and the machines. So they make you relevant, they make you show up to those who are wondering about the latest trends or wondering what the latest market dynamics mean or wondering what economic pressure means. You're really getting in front of people in a way that's authentic when you come down to trends as well. It's crucial to align your story across every channel. PR is a very, very important part of the story, but again, it's an ecosystem of channels and it does come across your earned and your owned and your socials and everything else like that as well. So LinkedIn posts, press coverage, website structure, interviews, case studies, category explainers. It's important that all of them are consistently reinforcing the same message. So just as an example, if you get good coverage in industry media around a new product launch, post it on social media with that same messaging, repost those articles where people are talking about you, do a webinar on the topics that you're currently targeting in the media, get your CEO to do a newsletter on what they've recently shared commentary on. It's basically bringing it all together and just consistently reinforcing everything across the same channel. So you're basically telling AI, this is what's true. And the more it's said, the more that it believes it. And then it's also about maintaining a consistent drumbeat of meaningful visibility. So PR is an ongoing, consistent, long-term strategy. It's not around singular big launches or announcements. The LLMs really do build cadence, answers on cadence, relevance, and consistency. So in other words, the job is never really done. It really is about that consistency. And then Jessica, I'll hand back to you then to tie that all together and look at this new visibility loop that we find ourselves in.
Excellent. Thank you, Amy. There was so much information there, but to simplify it, we have built a framework for a practical visibility tool framework, the new visibility loop. And there are 5 things for you to remember. The first is context. So match your visibility strategy to the current hospitality landscape. Make sure that it is about what's actually going on in hospitality at the moment. So there's real good context to it. Secondly, it's around clarity. Your story must be simple to grasp for both humans and for machines. Amy went into that in quite a lot of depth, but really is around that clarity. And thirdly, about structure. Format your content so it's easily retrieved, summarized, and then can be reused. The fourth is around reinforcement. Your narrative must show up consistently across all channels. So that means across your owned channels, whether that's your website, blogs, social media, sales, collateral, webinars, etc. But it's also the earned channels. So all your media relations, your case studies that are out there, your partnership stuff that you might be doing with other software in the company, or your PR messaging. And one of the things that we do with our clients is we do impact reports on the work that we do with them. And one of the things that we track is key message pull through. So we look at how much of the key messages that a particular company is wanting to be known for is getting pulled out in their earned media. It's really important to look at that stuff. And then finally, it's all about the output. It's all about that discoverability. A brand that is easy to find and understood is also easy to trust. So the goal is to recognize that visibility today rewards clarity over noise. It becomes a system, not a spike. It's a long-term asset that you're looking for here, not just a quick reaction. So the goal isn't to beat the algorithm. No one's going to be able to do that. But it is about being the easy answer. Everything about hospitality is changing. Everything about search is changing. Everything about AI is also changing. But PR and media communications is also changing right alongside them. Now, I'm going to pass back to Amy to go into a little bit more detail there.
Thanks, Jessica. Yeah, so this slide, it really just captures how we see the role of PR today. So PR's job isn't just to generate coverage or noise. It's to clarify what your brand actually does and why it matters. It's to simplify complex products, categories, propositions so that they are easier to understand. It's to help reinforce that same story consistently through third-party validation. And then it's to structure the narrative so that it is easy for AI to retrieve, summarize, and repeat. And then finally, it is to amplify it. So through the right media, the right voices, the right moments, make sure you're showing up in the right places. And when all of that compounds, that means that your brand does become the answer wherever the question is then asked. And this is really the note that we wanted to end on. So yes, the environment is shifting, search is changing, AI is reshaping how information is surfaced, and the hospitality tech landscape is more competitive than ever. But it really is a huge moment of opportunity, like Jessica said. So we really do believe that the brands who are most successful will be the ones who really do adapt their visibility strategy to match how people discover, compare, and trust hospitality technology. And before we wrap things up, I just wanted to share a new program that we've just rolled out at Abode Worldwide. And this is the Accelerator program. And it's really been developed directly as a result of all of the shifts and changes that we've spoken about here today, and designed to give companies in the space that clarity, the direction, and the plans that we have spoken about. So it's an 8-week program. It's fully guided by us. And we basically work closely with your leadership team to define your positioning and messaging, assess how you're showing up in the market and against competitors, and then help you identify where the real PR opportunities are. So by the end of the program, companies leave with a clear PR strategy, a refined messaging that they can then use consistently with media, investors and partners, competitive and media landscape analysis, and then that really crucial 6 to 12 PR month roadmap, which is mapped to announcements, campaigns and moments. So yeah, we are really excited about it. And if you are interested or want to learn more, then do just drop us an email and get in touch.
Brilliant. Thank you, Amy. Thank you very much. And I know, Christian, you have got some questions for us.
Absolutely. Firstly, I got to say, like, what a presentation. That was, fantastic. I've learned a lot. And one thing I kind of took away from it is that you don't need to be a big dog anymore in the space. You just got to have the right message. Before you just get slammed over by people's marketing budget, if they had more money than you, they'll be able to get their message out there. But now it's about building this clear message, which I thought was really interesting. And so let's jump into some questions. If any of our listeners have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat and Q&A. I got a couple that came over. I'm going to start with you, Jessica. Does this mean that own content matters less than it used to?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Owned content still matters, but its role has now changed. So if you think about your website, your blog, your product pages are now no longer the primary persuaders. They are now reference points. They support the narrative rather than create it. So in the past, they would have created the narrative. The narrative now exists elsewhere. They support that narrative. What carries weight is external validation. So that is about other people talking about you. So that's it, whether that's review sites or whether it's Reddit threads or whether it is press coverage, whether it is in conference materials, independent commentary, case studies, incredible outlets, anything that is talking about you that's external to you. These are the signals, the trust signals that AI treats as trustworthy. It's also what humans see as trustworthy as well. So the strongest visibility strategies connect the two. They connect earned media and your own owned media as well. So owned content provides that consistency and structure. It's still really, really important, but earned media provides the credibility and the authority. Together, they create something that AI can confidently summarize and, really importantly, is repeat. So hopefully that answers the question.
Oh, yeah. Before the webinar, and I'm posting on LinkedIn, I'm just going to read this directly to you for our listeners as well. I put a company's name into ChatGPT. Now, they have a great marketing side, and their content's great on their website, but this is what ChatGPT said. Things to be cautious about. There are very few genuine user reviews or trusted third-party evaluation from mainstream review sites. Most coverage comes from friendly blogs or press releases. That makes it hard to judge the reliability and quality objectively. I mean, this is just a random company. So whoever's company that is, maybe you got to look at doing some PR and building that strategy. I want to go to you, Amy, real quick. I got one here. If AI prioritizes trusted third-party sources, does that mean that smaller or newer companies are at disadvantage?
Good question again. No, I actually feel it's the opposite. So I think it's really important, firstly, to remember that AI doesn't favor size in terms of companies. It is clarity and it is also relevance to the question. So large companies actually can struggle a little bit more in this new environment because their story is so fragmented. So they've been around, a long time, multiple products, multiple lifetimes almost, evolving positioning across the years, different messages across regions, teams, channels. As companies grow, everyone knows narrative changes. And that's all documented, across online. Once things are out there, they are out there. And AI is still, picking up some of these signals. So actually, that can create a bit more ambiguity than if you are a smaller or a newer startup company. You can kind of have a bit of an advantage if you get all of this right really early. So a clear category definition, simple explanation of what you do and why it matters, that crystal clear narrative And then you go out and reinforce that across all of your channels, and then that third party validation as well. And yeah, I'd say that actually it's a real big opportunity for startups. And if anything, the larger companies might have actually a little bit more work to do when it comes to LLMs. So yeah, it's definitely not about budget or scale when it comes to AI, which as you said, sort of does level the playing field a bit, which is quite exciting.
Yeah, I agree. It's an exciting time to be in a company now and having this opportunity. Like I mentioned, I'm just looking at the time. I think, maybe I'll just leave it open for just final thoughts before we close up. I know we got a question in here, but we can also get to it through email and follow up on you on that, James, for sure. But any final thoughts or anything else you guys want to add to today's session?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to answer James's question if you like, Christian.
Yeah, we got a couple minutes if you want to take it out quick.
So the question we've been asked, what are the most sourced sites? Is LinkedIn important for LLMs? I hear Reddit a lot. So the answer is that there's different sites that are important for discoverability. If you think about it like this way, the LLMs can only access what they can access. So one of the things is things behind a paywall, unless there's a licensing agreement, is very difficult for the LLMs to take. So for instance, video on its own cannot be used at the moment unless there's a transcript. So if you've got a video, if you're on a podcast or something like that, they're really great for the LLMs to source, but only if there's a transcript where that information can be found. Another core site is trade press, because if you think about this, that's where the information is. So trade publications are talking about a given subject or a given industry all of the time. So they're seen as an authority in that sector. So if it's around something like hotel technology, you'd be really looking at publications that talk an awful lot about hotel technology rather than, let's say, a big national press that doesn't talk about it very much. They also take from research reports as well. And absolutely from LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a source where the LLMs are getting information. Reddit as well. But I also think that people have figured out that the LLMs have figured out that Reddit is being manipulated in order to, companies are manipulating it. So it will only go with what is trusted and what continues to keep providing good information. It is evolving, but the main thing is you've got to be out there in different places rather than your own owned content. So hopefully that helps answer that question. But in order to finish up, Christian, thank you so much for this, and thank you to the audience. If anyone wants any further questions, feel free to contact Amy or I, and we'd be really happy to answer as well as obviously we've got our accelerator program.